and welcome to chapter 1. This week's chapter 1 is Elves, Evergreen, and Evidence. Chapter 1. Merrier than Christmas morning with a biscuit in your hand was how Dottie had described Happy Trails Campground's booth this year for the Winter Festival. And boy, was she right. I stood and took a moment to drink in the sights of the Winter Festival in full swing. Dottie's description had nailed the feeling. It was an event filled with joy, wonder, and the spirit of the season. I sucked in a deep breath and my stomach gurgled as the warm scent of freshly baked biscuits wafted over the normal diner from the wintry day's light breeze. Everywhere I looked, twinkling fairy lights adorned booths, trees, lampposts throughout the park, casting a soft glow on the proceedings. The delicate luminous made the light snowflakes descending from heavens shimmer like millions of diamonds against the night sky. The snow gathered in gentle drifts, painting the town in shades of silver and white. It added a touch of magic, muffling the festival sound slightly and making everything seem just a tad softer and a tad more otherworldly. At the far end of the park, the amphitheater was slowly filling up, its stone seats covered with blankets and eager spectators. They were all bundled up in colorful scarves and mittens, and their breath misting in the cool air, waiting in anticipation for the evening's performances. But the big show tonight was the annual tree lighting. The towering Christmas tree stood proudly in the center of the grassy median. It was unlit for now, but even in the gathering dust, it was a sight to behold. The majestic fir was adorned with red and gold baubles, silver tinsel, and what looked like hundreds of handcrafted ornaments, each reflecting the heritage and tradition of Normal, Kentucky, and the Daniel Boone National Forest. Near the tree, a platform had been erected for Santa. It was so darn cute to see all the kids lined up, eyes wide with a mix of nervousness and excitement, their tiny voices raised in awe or in a whispered conversation with their parents. Their laughter and innocent chatter were heartwarming, and my feeling while witnessing it all was one I'd love to bottle up and hold on to. I still couldn't believe what a year we'd had, and it was about to come to a close after Christmas with the New Year approaching. And it felt overwhelming sense of community when I looked around at the vendors, the local business owners with whom I'd become very close friends. Here, at this one celebration in the heart of the Daniel Boone National Forest, beneath a canopy of stars, and amid the ancient trees, we were all connected, and everyone smiling and having a good time truly brought the spirit of the season. "Are you standing there daydreaming again, Maybelline?" Dottie Swaggart asked as she walked back over to the small table we had placed between the two camping chairs in order to get some of the brochures we had put together as sponsors of this year's Red Bird Winter Festival charity. The Redbirds were an arm of the Daniel Boone National Forest Advisory Committee, made up of a group of women from the forest surrounding counties who actually enjoy doing fundraiser and volunteer work. Cheryl Paisley, a knitter, was the first person to rent the camper van I lived in my campground while she found her footing in Kentucky. She and Tilly, her cat, had come to town ahead of a terrible tornado, and it was the first week I'd rented my very own camper to a tourist. And when Cheryl had asked how she could get involved in Normal, the Redbirds had come to mind immediately as an option until she could decide where in our bluegrass state she wanted to permanently land. She wanted to be part of our community and thought her stay might be brief. There was no better way to get involved than to join the Redbirds. It seems Cheryl especially was helping raise funds for various causes. So when she heard we needed someone to volunteer for the Winter Festival fundraiser for our children's summer camps, she was all over it. "It's a short-term commitment," she said. "I'll rent your camper through the winter months, and then I'll explore Kentucky more to see where I want to make it home." Little did we realize Cheryl was staying and actually made her very own shop just across the way called the Stitch and Post. But either way, she was volunteering, which meant that she needed people to recruit. And that's where we came in, the laundry club ladies. And with the help of Cheryl's teaching skills, her knitting teaching skills, had spent many a night around a campfire inside my camper van and in the recreational center over the past couple of months, crafting little gnomes and elf-looking dolls in Christmas-themed yarn patterns. "I ain't never seen so many people love these little gnomes. Dottie picked up a handful of the small knitted creatures. Elves, I corrected her. I felt like she was right. Cheryl said they're elves. Whatever they are, they sure are ugly little things. Dottie's nose wrinkled as she looked down at the small pile of handcrafted creatures with exaggerated features. But folks seem to love them. I chuckled softly. Well, it is the spirit of the season, and maybe they see a bit of the festival magic in these elves, I said. Dottie rolled her eyes and dramatically but smiled, revealing the warmth she tried so hard to keep hidden under the tough exterior. Well, I reckon they make good stocking stuffers. I glanced over at the Redbird's booth where Cheryl was enthusiastically explaining to the couple the significance of the unique pattern. The hum of conversation, gentle melodies of carolers in the distance, the occasional ring of a bell from the nearby Salvation Army booth blended to create a harmonious soundtrack to the evening. The air was cool and crisp, but every so often a gust of wind would send a flurry of snowflakes dancing around us. And Dudley suddenly leaned closer to me, her tone very conspiratorial. You reckon Cheryl has any idea about the surprise the Redbirds are planning for her later tonight? I shook my head and grinned, tugging at my lips. Not a clue, and it's going to be such a heartwarming sight. I think she's going to love it. This here's what it's all about, ain't it? Community and giving back and just being together. Dottie nodded, her gaze sweeping over the festivities. Exactly. And these moments are what make everything worthwhile. I smiled, touched by her sentiment. From the corner of my eyes, I noticed movement near the back corner of the amphitheater where the behind-the-scenes staging was located. And there were two men engaging in what looked like to be a heated argument, their aggressive body language making that clear, even from the distance that I was standing. And one of the men tightly gripped the reins of a reindeer who seemed uneasy with the tension in the air, and I could see his other hand gripping a paper cup. Well, now, Dottie mused, her voice dripping with curiosity. She set down one of the elves she'd been examining. What's that all about? Without waiting for an answer, she pulled out her pleather cigarette case, swiftly lighting up one cigarette as she made her way towards the scene. With her cigarette in hand, she looked like a freight train barreling down the tracks, unstoppable, intent on getting to the heart of the matter. Dottie picked up speed, and after the situation between the two men suddenly escalated, the one holding the reindeer reins slowly bent down and put his drink on the ground next to his feet so he could use his free hand to shove the other guy with such force that he stumbled backwards, landing on the cold, snowy ground. Their voices were drowned out by the festive sounds around us, but their anger was palpable. The man with the reins had a face as stormy as winter night, and when he gave the man on the ground one last look, he picked up his drink. And as he walked past our booth, leading the clearing agitated reindeer, and took a sip, our eyes locked for a split second. His gaze was icy, and a shiver ran down my spine, unrelated to the cold weather. He crumpled up his cup, and he threw it in the trash that we had put beside our booth for the festival goers. You won't get away with this, the man still on the ground called out. But just as suddenly as the tension peaked, it was punctuated by a robust ho, 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 and the merry jingle of bells. Santa Claus is in all his glory appeared from around the amphitheater. The sight of him, his rosy cheeks and twinkling eyes, was such a contrast to the altercation I had just witnessed. The children nearby squealed in delight, their attention suddenly drawn to the big guy, Santa, effectively shifting the public's focus from the two quarreling men. I glanced at Dottie, who had stopped midway in the scene, puzzled expression on her face as she took a drag from her cigarette. She raised a brow, and I could tell we were both thinking the same thing. There was a story behind that argument, and it was one we were both eager to uncover. As we called it, a cover-up for what we really were going to do was gossip. But for now, Santa's arrival and the festivities were in full swing, so that would just have to wait. Chapter 1, Elves, Evergreen, and Evidence.